It's time for another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina, featuring interviews with leaders and influencers across a variety of manufacturing disciplines discussing trending topics in the industry. Let's Talk Manufacturing is part of the Let's Talk Business South Carolina network of B2B talk shows and brought to you by the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And now, coming to you from the Drum Creative Studio, here's your host, longtime South Carolina business publisher, Rick Jenkins.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina. We're up to episode number 6, and I am certainly glad that you found us. All episodes of Let's Talk Manufacturing are produced in conjunction with the Manufacturing Extension Partnership and recorded in the Drum Creative Studio. Today's episode is also brought to you by AFL. They are a leading global manufacturer of fiber optic cable, equipment, and accessories, and they're headquartered in Spartanburg County, just up the road in Duncan. AFL's customers include organizations such as telecom companies, electric utilities, corporations, data centers, and gas firms as well. More on those guys just a little bit later in the episode. I'll be talking to 3 guests today. Steve Logue, he is the general manager at Sensolus, will be here. Sensolus provides industrial-grade IoT tracking solutions in industries such as logistics, construction, and, of course, manufacturing. And then Randy Dunn, the director of operations at Itron, will be joining us virtually as part of the From the Factory Floor segment we do on each episode. Itron is an electrical equipment manufacturer located in Oconee County, and Randy will get us up to speed on what is happening at his plant. But I'm going to start with Laura Dalziel. Laura is the regional sales manager at Malone Workforce Solutions, and she is also joining us virtually today. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it.
Well, it's good to have you here. You are at the Malone Workforce Solutions office over in Charleston. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I know from talking to you before that you travel around a lot. You are the regional sales manager. Do I have the title correct? And
yes, regional sales manager of the Southeast.
Okay, so you are in and out of South Carolina. You're based there, but you're also a little bit of everywhere, right?
Yes, home base is Charleston, but over the Carolinas, Georgia, and Alabama.
Got it. Okay, so we have had one of your colleagues on before. Tony Bartonetti was on with us not too long ago. He, of course, I believe, sits way out there in California. So we have had a chance to talk to other folks from Malone on here before, and so now it is your turn. And welcome. I want to get into it right away, and I want to talk about challenges in the staffing industry. You and I have had a little chance to talk about this in the past, but there are a couple I know that are on your mind. Tell me, what are the biggest challenges these days?
I would say first to start would be turnover. So turnover remains one of the biggest challenges, especially when you see that 75% of high achievers are drawn to organizations with robust employee care programs. So companies are increasingly investing in their employees' work-life balance, making it crucial for staffing firms like Malone to offer solutions that align with those needs.
Let's stick there for a second before you go to something else. But you said a statistic that is quite alarming. 75% of high achievers will go to an organization that has a robust employee care program, I believe is what you said. So if you don't have one, you might as well just be waiting for your best employees to just get up and leave. Is that right?
I mean, that is right. It plays a part in just not the retention aspect of high achievers, but also in how you're attracting those high achievers as a candidate to your organization.
So when you're looking to fill a job, if you don't have that type of employee program, then you might not be the first choice. Which gets us, excuse me, Lord, but which gets us to another challenge that I've heard you talk about before, and that is the lower quality candidates. And I'm assuming by what you meant by that when we were talking earlier was if the high achievers are going elsewhere, you are stuck with the not so high achievers.
Absolutely. So many companies struggle to find individuals with the right skills, which can lead them to promoting unqualified people from within without proper training programs in place that can impact productivity negatively. And at Malone, we focus on sourcing quality talent and providing resources to help companies upscale their workforce.
There are a lot of, in South Carolina, we have 6,000 manufacturers, which is kind of hard to believe. They, of course, are not all the big, huge variety. We've got a lot of small manufacturers and a lot of medium-sized manufacturers as well. And I would imagine that turnover and that retention plays a huge part in the bottom line in those companies, because turnover can be expensive. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Turnover can be incredibly costly. On average, it costs around $5,000 to hire a new employee. And we've seen that cost per an application. So again, that's just cost to attract an applicant rise from what would have been $17 per an applicant to $23 as the cost per an applicant just in the past 2 years alone. So when companies experience high turnover, it affects not only their bottom line, but also their operational efficiency. That's why Malone emphasizes retention through our employee care and our quality at the core programs, which has proven to improve employee satisfaction and longevity with organizations.
You know, we're talking about employee care programs and how important it is when you get a new client, you get a new manufacturing client, and you go down and you sit down with them to begin the process. Or maybe if you all are in the interview process yourself, right, trying to obtain a piece of work, I would guess, hearing you talk, that one of the very first things you're going to talk about is, what does your employee care program look like? And if it is not robust, as you say, there might need to be a conversation before the conversation.
Absolutely. So one of the ways we do that is actually through one of our models, RPO, which is Recruitment Process Outsourcing. So we can step in to handle parts or all of the recruitment process, allowing the internal team to focus on core operations. So with RPO, you can extend your bandwidth, and an expert takes care of everything from sourcing to onboarding.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was where I was going next. And again, because of conversations that you and I have, I know there are 3 ways that a staffing firm can assist in the hiring process, and you just touched on one, the recruitment process outsourcing, or as you call it, RPO. But there is also a managed service provider and an on-site model. Now, I understand the on-site model, and I want to talk about that, but I'm going to save that for last, and we'll come back to RPO as well. Let's start with managed service provider. Laura, tell me about that.
Yeah, so if an organization works with multiple staffing vendors, Malone can manage them for you. So we ensure compliant, streamlined quality and provide access to a customizable vendor management system tailored to your organization's needs. So you see that in a lot of organizations that are operating typically at a higher volume that are having to use multiple vendors. So when we touch back on quality and compliance, using a staffing vendor in an MSP capacity allows for you to streamline that quality and compliance throughout to ensure that no matter the vendor, you are still seeing that same amount of quality, while also allowing for access to a vendor management system that can be customizable, that your head of departments and supervisors have access to for tracking of your associates.
You know, Laura, I guess I never thought about that in a large organization that they would have potentially have a variety of staffing partners. If I'm thinking this through, then are you saying that, maybe staffing agency X handles middle management hires, and staffing agency Y handles people who work the product lines? And that within a managed service provider situation, you have one staffing agency that oversees all of them? Is that how that works?
That's correct. And at times, too, will play a factor when, of course, we are staffing and fulfilling at those different department levels as well. But again, I think that is putting more so of the focus. There's times where we're coming in and also truly partnering with the staffing vendors and partnerships that are already in place. We just want to ensure that, again, those programs and resources are readily available to all vendors, and they're using, again, so we can ensure that that quality and compliance is streamlined and held at the same standard across the board.
Yeah, I got you. Let's return to what you were discussing earlier, and that is the recruitment process outsourcing, are an RPO. And as you were explaining in a minute ago, and I just want to dive in a little deeper, you talked about that in these kinds of situations, you all can be an extension arm for the manufacturer or the company that you are dealing with to try and take away pieces of the work that they would normally do to allow them to focus on core functions. One more time, just kind of run us through that, please.
Absolutely. So for our RPO model, we offer that on a full model or also what we call flex RPO. So again, that allows for the organization to pick and choose. Maybe they're just needing assistance on the front end, the recruitment side of that onboarding process, or maybe they need that on the full cycle from recruitment to onboarding. Either way, we have our experts come in as a team. They meet with department heads. They'll assess the strengths and weaknesses, and they'll work directly with the team to allow them real-time analytics on the recruitment side as well as the onboarding side to really be able to dive in analytically what's working, what's not for the organization and for that market specifically. And again, we're able to do that full cycle, or they can also customize that to the aspects that need the most attention for their organization.
I'm with you, and that leads us to an on-site model. And so the RPO can be all kinds of degrees, right? We can take as little or as much as you want us to take off of your plate, but an on-site model is what it says. You all send employees into that manufacturing facility. How does that work?
Absolutely. So our on-site team works directly alongside the operations team as an extension of their workforce. So we provide dedicated on-site supervisors, ensuring that there's seamless integration and smooth day-to-day operations. So that being said, we do have about a 30-person on-site division that can scale up rapidly based on their needs as well there.
So you have a division that is committed, Malone Workforce has a division that is committed to just this type of effort, the on-site model.
Absolutely. And the on-site model, time and time again, it proves itself to have someone who is there in a role that is going to be that liaison between the associates and the customer.
So in that kind of situation, the manufacturer doesn't have to worry about anything that is happening in that situation other than probably meeting with somebody once a week or so and get an update or that type of thing. You all handle it from start to finish.
Yes, that's the goal, to increase their bandwidth so they can focus on the core business that they need to.
Now, you all have a client, not to that we also discussed, that is located in Charleston. That, as I understand it, you helped them with an on-site model over the course of a few years. I know that we're not going to talk about the specifics of who that client was, but I do know that they reside there in Charleston. Tell me how that worked.
Absolutely. So we actually helped them with a little bit of each of our models, which again is one of the great things about Malone being family owned, but non-operated, that we're able to have that flexibility and provide those tailored solutions. So with this organization, they were primarily based out of New York area, and they were coming to expand into the Charleston, South Carolina market. This was back in 2021. So it was crucial from day one that we were involved with helping them assess the local market so that they could understand wage expectations, analyze competitor data. And we started by hiring their department heads and middle managers. We did so off of a direct hire model, which Malone has a professional division team that specializes in that area of recruitment. From that, we were able to transition them to a temp to hire model. Malone does have over 70 brick and mortar locations throughout the U.S. With great local operations team that was able to be there day to day locally to help drive that temp to hire model for their general up to skilled workforce. They've been a valued client of ours since 2021, and we are happy to be able to be a contribution to their company's long-term goals of success that they've had there.
Well, it sounds like, other than probably some of the C-level executives, that you pretty much hired probably everybody that works in those facilities in one way or another, from middle managers all the way down, right?
Right. I mean, hey, not too long ago, they did reach out back to us in our professional division for actually a CEO position out of their New Jersey location.
I'm going to get you out of here on this, Laura. Let's talk about your quality program. I know it is very important to you guys, and I know it's a good one. Tell me how that works.
Absolutely. So with Malone, quality is a cornerstone of our operations. We have what we call quality at the core program. That stands for classification, observe, retention, evaluation. So customer grading and ranking system, it ensures that we match the right talent to the right companies. Improved interview process, so enhances the selection of candidates to better fit the organizational needs. That's followed and coupled by check-ins with new starts and customers. So at Malone, we actively engage with both employees and clients to ensure satisfaction and resolve any issues early on. So primarily, we're doing that from a series of stay interviews that we also collaborate with our clients on to build those out, cater to maybe data that they're specifically looking to obtain, as you have new hires who are starting in their first week and after 30 days, 60 days, and so on. And then a coaching program for field employees. So that helps us improve performance and retention rates. Through quarterly business reviews and audits, we're continuously improving the quality of our services. So again, always wanting to ensure that we're aligning with our clients' end goals.
Laura, really good stuff. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome, folks. That is Laura Dalziel. She is the Regional Sales Manager for the Southeast for Malone Workforce Solutions. Now, I don't want you to go anywhere because we're going to be right back with another guest. I do want to thank our presenting partner once again, and that is AFL. They established operations in the upstate back in 1984, and at that point, they only produced one single product, folks, if you can believe that. You fast forward 40 years, and now they are manufacturing 3,000 products in 13 manufacturing facilities stretched around the world. Once again, thanks to AFL for being our presenting partner today. Now, don't go anywhere. We will be right back to talk with Steve Logue. Steve is the general manager at a company called Sensolus, and they provide industrial IoT tracking solutions. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Rick Jenkins. I'm your host, and it is good to have you here. Just in case you didn't know, you can go to our YouTube channel and check out episodes of Let's Talk Business South Carolina, Let's Talk Construction, and this one, Let's Talk Manufacturing. All you got to do is go to YouTube and search Let's Talk Business South Carolina. And you can also find us on podcasts. We can be downloaded on Apple and Google and Spotify and even YouTube. So there's all kinds of ways that you can access this content. Before I get to my next guest right here, I do want to give another shout out to our friends at AFL. AFL is the presenting partner of today's episode, and we appreciate them helping us make it possible to bring this type of content to the manufacturing community. And I want to mention this about AFL. We've talked about them off and on throughout the episode, but they give a whole lot back to the charities in South Carolina. They've been here since 1984. As I mentioned earlier, they established that facility in Duncan, just up the road in Spartanburg County, back in 1984. And over the past 40 years, they have given back $6 million to South Carolina charities. And so we do appreciate AFL for being a great business partner to the community. All right, folks, I am now joined by Steve Logue. He is the general manager at a company called Sensolus. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Rick, thanks for having me here. And first, +1 tech speak for I agree on AFL. Great company.
They are a great company.
Yeah.
They are a great company. They are on the show from time to time. I always enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
You are welcome. Now, you drove up from Atlanta today. Is that right? That's where you live.
That's right.
Is that correct? You live down in Atlanta, but you all are doing business everywhere, Sensolus.
Yeah, we're national in scope. We're global in scope. A European company that recently planted a flag here in the United States last year, and
Right.
I'm GM for the operation.
Let's talk manufacturing. You are an IoT firm, and I want you to just kind of walk us through. Give me a little bit of the elevator speech, just kind of a brief one, and then we'll dive in a little more. Tell us about Sensolus.
Yeah, so Sensolus, we are an asset tracking company. We build end-to-end solutions to track your assets for industrial manufacturers. And that means we manufacture these trackers right here, about the size of a deck of cards. And we build those in Ireland, actually. And then we build the software, the cloud platform to manage those trackers and the assets that they're connected to. And we do that out of Belgium. Sensolus is a company born in Belgium 11 years ago, and in most European countries now, in the U.S., and soon to expand into Canada and Latin America. And so the whole idea is that for manufacturers, we track your crates, your pallets, your racks that are on the production line in the factory wall, between the factory walls, and then also between the factory and the warehouse, between the factory and third-party subcontractors. And the whole idea with our technology is to give you visibility into your assets at all times.
Right, and so now you're getting into supply chain and you're getting into logistics and things like that.
Yeah.
But as we talked before, you all are also in the construction industry. How does it work in the construction industry?
Yeah, there are a few industries that we're strong in. One is industrial manufacturing. The other is construction, specialty equipment, and transport and logistics, of course, right? Like trailers.
Right.
And so in the construction industry, we do things like we track forklifts, we track machinery on construction sites, right? These are high value assets, right, that you don't want to lose, right? And sometimes we work with companies that rent and lease those out. And if you're the owner of that asset, right, you want to know where that is at all times. And last I would say is, no one can do everything with excellence, right? And so every company and manufacturer, construction firm has an ecosystem of suppliers. And so with our trackers, you can enforce SLAs and make sure, people are doing what they say they're going to do, right?
Enforce what?
SLA, service level agreements. And so ensure compliance, basically.
Right. So this little doohickey, that's a technical term, goes somewhere.
The Flemish language.
Yeah, right. Goes somewhere on the product, right? On an asset.
That's right.
And if I were to break this open, what do I find in there?
You find a number of things. You find, first of all, an industry-leading battery life, or battery with industry-leading life. And so it's 3-cell lithium battery in there. The batteries can last up to 10 years on that wireless tracker there. So that's the first thing you'll find. You'll find a modem for communications. We connect to AT&T and T-Mobile. We use cellular networks for connectivity. You'll find other electronics in there, like, for example, an accelerometer. An accelerometer, what that will do, this tracker not only tells you where your asset is and the movement of that asset, but also the condition of that asset, like temperature, humidity, orientation of the asset. So there are accelerometers in there with sensors to help you on condition monitoring, basically.
Right.
That's what you'd find in there.
So from a construction perspective, you put this on the bottom of a bulldozer somewhere, it leases out, and all of a sudden I arrive on Monday and it's not there, but somebody took it and now we can find you, right?
That's right.
That type of thing. But now let's go into...
Or if you have a yard with, tons of trailers in there, right? You can optimize that. I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about the manufacturing use case when you're ready, but those are the applications of the tractor.
So you have an asset, and that asset could start out on a shipping container as it is making its way over from Belgium, and it could find its way into the port of Charleston, and it could find its way onto that container could be transferred off of that ship onto a rail.
Yeah.
That rail could make its way to the inland port in Greer and come off of that rail and find its way onto a truck. and
then to the site.
And then that asset could go to a warehouse or something. But and then to the site, but whatever. So what I hear you saying is that this gives the person who asset belongs to a way to always know where it is and track it as needed.
That's it. I mean, there's a fancy term in this business called a digital twin.
Digital
so that's
twin,
a digital
right.
twin. That tracker is a digital twin of your asset.
Yes.
And it gives you basically, our solutions give you basically online visibility into your assets. And so you might say, oh, what's the business case for that, right? I mean, some might say that's a nice to have and not a must have to know where my assets are. Well,
Yes.
It depends on how you do it today and what your scale is, right? If you're walking around with a clipboard or you're walking around with an Excel spreadsheet tracking where your assets are, it's probably not that efficient once you reach a certain level of scale, right? And so this is an alternative way to track your assets, and then you can look at specific variables, ROI drivers, if you will. For example, in the business of manufacturing, so many manufacturers are making custom crates and racks and pallets to move stuff from point A to point B, parts, assembled goods, finished goods, right? Those racks can cost $5,000 or more, right? Because they're custom made, right? Like Airbus, we work with Airbus and they're making custom racks for engines. And so those racks get lost and they're expensive. Or, those racks could be used a hell of a lot more than they are being used, right? And so our solutions help you to optimize your supply chain, basically, right? And if you have a theft issue, we can deal with that. But there are other things too, like compliance, like sustainability. There are other benefits too.
Yeah. So who uses this more? The customer who owns the asset or the logistics company who transports the asset? So let me just say it this way, is that if I'm a logistics company, I've got a huge client that is spending millions of dollars with me to transport their assets across the world, right? I think that I might want to be sure that I can track them as a logistics company, because if I'm that customer, I'm going to assume you're doing it because I'm insured.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know.
The answer is both. I mean, we were strong in logistics, we're strong in industrial manufacturing, we're strong in specialty equipment. We also work in environmental solutions too, tracking containers. But it's really both. But I would say our sweet spot is industrial manufacturing because it's reusable packaging, racks, crates, pallets that are non-powered, and that's the key term here. These are wireless trackers. We do have one with a cable that connects to a battery as well, but our sweet spot and what differentiates us from competitors is that we track non-powered assets primarily.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you work with Airbus.
Yeah.
What does that relationship look like?
That's one of our strongest relationships. We're inside the industrial manufacturing vertical. It's aerospace and automotive. That we're really strong, but other areas too. But in the case of Airbus, we started working with them 7 years ago in Europe. Now we work with them globally. They have purchased 25,000 of those trackers, and they're using them to track all their stuff from point A to point B within factory walls, and then between the factory, the warehouse, third-party subcontractors, and the like. And so we have enabled online visibility into their assets, and the relationship has grown over time.
Steve, while you're talking about it, it just reminds me, in March of 2020, this thing occurred called COVID, right? And before March of 2020, there were a lot of people who had never even heard of the term supply chain, right? Just generically speaking. But the supply chain became very obvious, and the shortfalls of the supply chain became very obvious when the pandemic hit for a variety of reasons. No need to get into that. But I guess my question for you is when COVID changed the way some of us do business, especially in the logistics world, did it change your company?
Did. As a company, early on, we took a bit of a hit, right? But COVID spurred the acceleration of digitalization.
Right.
And across all industries, of course, Amazon is a great example in consumer retail. But we are about digitizing your business in terms of getting visibility into your supply chain, right? Online visibility into your supply chain. So we have seen an acceleration there. And, the whole idea of just-in-time inventory and there were so many disruptions to supply chains during COVID. And so companies want more visibility so they can be proactive about managing their supply chain and not reactive. And then what we're seeing most recently, and you've probably heard this buzzword once or twice, AI, that's affecting our business too. And so in our case, one example of what we're doing is edge intelligence, is putting more intelligence in the tracker, right, rather than in the cloud in terms of location and movement and that sort of stuff, because what we like to talk about is the extreme battery life of these trackers, right? But the more the trackers are communicating to the cloud, the quicker the battery will drain. And so we have been building over the last couple of years more and more intel on the edge. And so that's an example, but we're seeing that as a recent trend, I would say.
Yeah. Let's stick with AI for a second. I'm glad you brought that up. There's hardly, and I've said this on the shows before, but there's hardly a time when a person comes in and sits in that chair right there where we don't discuss AI, regardless of what industry that they may work in. It's touching our lives in a million different ways. Give me a little bit better understanding of how AI is, how you all utilize AI in your world, and logistics in general, supply chain in general.
Edge intelligence is probably the best example of how we're deploying AI in our solutions, but it goes beyond that, because you need data for AI to work, right? And so our cloud platform, the tracker is just part of the story. It's the hardware. The software is what you're using, and I can describe it. You enter into the platform and you get a map of where all your assets are, a list of those, and you can click on each asset and get the exact location and where it's moved from, where it's going to, that kind of stuff. And so the AI aspect of the platform, I would say, is about the manipulation of the data or the processing of the data to give you the insights to take action to make the most of your assets, right? Because it's not good enough to have data just overwhelm you with data if you can't take action with that data and drive your business, right? And so that's what we focus on, is ensuring we're getting we're processing the right data to give you the insights to take action.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff we just refer to as good old-fashioned predictive analytics.
It is, yeah.
Right? You're using big data, as much data as you can to predict things that are going to help you be more efficient and save dollars down the road.
Yeah, and it's possible now because we're getting access to data, computing power, and AI, and the congruence of those three are coming together to allow businesses to do more with what they have. And that's our whole proposition. You have assets, make the most of those assets.
Yeah. You talked about verticals, and we talked about, let's get into that a little bit later, but let's spend some time with that. Yeah. Okay, so, I know from an overarching perspective, we're talking about industrial manufacturing and a variety of things, but give us a little better idea of the verticals you all deal with.
Yeah. So besides industrial manufacturing, transport and logistics, and our sweet spot is mostly non-powered assets like trailers, and trailers that are maybe not owned by the same company that owns the truck that's hauling them, right? And so maybe they're leased or rented, right? Or owned by third parties, and you want to know where the trailer is, especially the assets within that trailer. And then the last one I would say is tracking high-value specialty equipment. Can be leased, rented as well, or you own it. Like we track forklifts, we track industrial grade cleaning machines, things like that.
Right. Steve, let's talk about ROI for a second. I can see that this can positively impact someone's company's ROI. I mean, every year, depending, at some point, you're probably going to companies budget to lose. Companies budget to misplace something, to have to replace something. Depending on how big your company is, those can be really big line items. Mm-hmm. How was ROI impacted by having this little sucker?
Yeah, little sucker. Another Belgian word.
Yes.
First is, what is the ROI about having visibility into your assets? What's the alternative? It's not having visibility, right? Or walking around with a clipboard, or walking around with an Excel spreadsheet, right? Which is prone to human error and not scalable, right? And so once you reach a certain level, you really need a more robust, scalable solution for online visibility. And you mentioned earlier, right? It's about making the most out of your existing assets, your racks, your crates, your trailers, your containers, so you don't have to go out and buy more unnecessarily. These racks, they get sent in one direction and they get lost, right? And so you have to replace those. And so that is where the ROI is often. If you have a theft issue, that's where the ROI is. But there are other aspects too, like third-party compliance. You're just getting more efficiency out of your supply chain and out of your ecosystem of suppliers by always knowing where your assets are, I would say.
Steve, that is great stuff. I appreciate you joining.
Rick, thanks for having me here.
You're welcome.
I hope to see you more here in South Carolina. My wife and I, it's in our plans. Right. We're coming. Give us a few years.
Folks, that is Steve Logue. He is the general manager at Sensolus. They are a industrial-grade IoT tracking solution company, and this is what they produce right here.
Along with the software that manages
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Steve, I appreciate it. Folks, don't go anywhere. We are going to be right back with Randy Dunn. Randy is the Director of Operations at Itron. We're going to find out what's going on at that plant over in West Union. Be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Let's Talk Manufacturing, South Carolina. All episodes are produced in conjunction with the South Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership. It's now time for a segment we do on each episode called From the Factory Floor. This segment allows us to spend some quality time with an executive while they are on their plant floor. Today, I'll be joined by Randy Dunn. Randy is the Director of Operations at Itron. But before we get to Randy, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at HTI, or Human Technologies Incorporated. As always, they are the presenting sponsor of this segment, and they make it possible for us to bring this valuable content to the state's manufacturing community. HTI began as a professional recruiting firm for auto manufacturers back in 1999, and today they are an industrial staffing firm, an executive search firm, and they provide flexible, sustainable, and scalable hiring and HR solutions for manufacturers and other industries as well. They are experts at helping their manufacturing partners to attract top talent and to retain those employees as well, and they are committed to navigating the ins and outs of the entire employee life cycle. So thanks again to HTI for being the presenting sponsor of From the Factory Floor. And now I'm joined by Randy Dunn. He is the Director of Operations at Itron. Randy, welcome to the show.
Yes, good afternoon, Rick. Pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. Tell me what I am seeing. Where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in front of one of our automated lines. It's one of our high volume lines that we produce electric meters for residential and commercial applications.
You know, every now and then I'll be searching the internet to get some images to use in a promotional campaign, and sometimes I want images of a robot. And it seems like when I Google manufacturing floor robots, I see that yellow thing that is behind you that has Itron on it. It is always available and it always pops up.
Yes, sir. Now we're proud of our automation. A lot of this automation is developed internally in our own factory floor. Obviously, we purchase robots from external manufacturers.
Well, we'll get into what you guys are doing there in a second, but before we do that, tell me, Randy, what you do at Itron.
So I was recently appointed the Director of Operations here at the facility in what we call Coney County, which is in West Union. I specifically manage the day-to-day operations of executing meter assemblies that we provide to our customers. That entails supply chain, maintenance, logistics, HR, safety of our associates, and then of course, obviously, a production and output.
Sounds like a big job. Last year, you guys announced that you were going to expand that plant there, and you're in Oconee County. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I believe that expansion is about $29 million worth that was going to produce about 100 jobs. I don't know if all of that has occurred yet, but where do you stand on that?
We are actually, unfortunately, closing one of our facilities in Waseca, Minnesota, and that transfer of equipment is actually in process now. We're probably about 90% complete with that transfer. We are hiring 80 associates, and then we're going to continue to expand our production due to demand in our electricity area. So we're going to add another 80 or so associates in that area as well. So we're well on our way to meeting those goals, and then looking forward to continuing to expand to the end of the year and then into 2025.
Randy, how big is the facility there?
Under roof, we have 325,000 square feet. 33,000 of that's R&D, but 268,000 of it is in manufacturing.
And how many employees now, Randy?
We're currently at 1,274 employees, but we're looking to add another close to 200 associates.
I see. Okay, so you're going to be pushing 1,500 before too long.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm looking down to read this because I just need a reminder here, but you all manufacture what you call smart electric and gas meters. Tell me what that means.
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on innovation. And so we have what we produce here at this facility is the hardware. So we produce electric meters that go on residential homes as well as commercial applications. We also produce gas and water meters that go into various applications as well. And then in addition to the hardware that we produce here, and what we do here is mostly assembly, we actually provide software grid management. So for the utility companies, it provides edge for them to maintain and manage the electrical grid, for example, or even the gas or water supplies. And so that helps them become more efficient, more carbon neutral, helps demand and peak demands manage the loads as well. So these smart meters use, in some cases, cellular data transfer. If you can recall back in a few decades ago where meters were read manually with a rotating dial, that has since evolved, and technology has been developed within Itron to communicate to the cellular network that we have throughout our country, and allows utility companies to manage their grids and optimize their performance.
And as with everyone, it seems nowadays, you are using artificial intelligence in part to make some of that happen. And if I remember right, you all actually have your own AI proprietary software.
Yes, sir. That is absolutely 100% correct. So we pride ourselves on our innovation in that department and region as well, because we provide a complete package where some of our competitors don't have that advantage. So we, again, not just the meter itself, but being able to manage the grid and having AI, say at peak demand when everyone plugs in their electric vehicles at 5 o'clock when they come home from work, we can avoid having an overload situation and blowing out a transformer or something like that. We can manage and curtail that instantaneously with the AI software that we have.
Randy, I did not realize until I was just preparing for this conversation a little bit beforehand, I did not realize how big Itron was. You all are doing business in about 100 different countries. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With over 8,000 customers. That's correct.
Way bigger than I thought. You are undergoing now, as we mentioned, a transformation in how you all go about manufacturing products. And I would assume that takes a whole lot of buy-in, not only from people on the line, the folks that I see behind you, but also from middle managers. That is a big change in the way you do things.
Absolutely. It's a complete transformation. As we grow our business, we're out of this facility alone, we're going to be close to $1 billion facility, where our goals are to aspire to be much greater than that in 2025. So the way we manage business we did a decade ago is going to be completely different the way we manage it today and then going forward in the future. As you mentioned, it takes an entire team of people, highly skilled, with a lot of skill sets and knowledge of how to make processes work. So we are looking at a complete transformation and looking at implementing a lean transformation, if you will, at this facility in all aspects of what we discussed, from a supply chain standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint, from an overall business standpoint as well.
Lots going on at Itron. Randy, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of what I am sure is an extremely busy schedule to talk to us on From the Factory Floor. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Rick.
All right, folks, that does it. That is wraps another episode of Let's Talk Manufacturing South Carolina. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.